My name is Bulelani Mfaco. I'm from Cape Town in the Republic of South Africa. A young lady who lived down the road from where I lived had been abducted and murdered for no reason other than her sexual orientation. She wasn't the first person to be killed for her sexual orientation. I just decided, that was it. I'm not going to stay there anymore and live in fear. I left a one-way ticket back to Dublin. I first consulted several NGOs, including the Immigration Council and the Irish Refugee Council. I then applied for international protection on the 1st of November in 2017. And that experience was very eye-opening because it was the first time that I've ever been deprived of many of my fundamental human rights, such as the right to engage in gainful employment and being stripped of personal autonomy. I couldn't decide what to have for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, or where to have it. I couldn't decide who I shared a bedroom with for the very first time in my life. And when my first roommate in Auckland found out that I'm gay, he said, "I don't like that shit. Boys are supposed to be with girls," and we were expected to share an intimate space such as a bedroom in that environment. Like, I used to have days in direct provision where I wouldn't want to even get out of the room after experiencing hearing homophobic slurs in the common area, like in a canteen, just completely disinterested. Like, I had no trust whatsoever. I didn't know who to trust, who do I rely on. People look to Ireland for progressive ethos, and yet we don't see that coming through in the direct provision system. It is quite contrary to Ireland's human rights obligations because most modern states have signed up to various human rights treaties, such as the Geneva Convention on Refugees, and we don't then see that in the system of direct provision, because you are physically removing people from Irish society. You are divorcing them from social, economic, and political life of the country, and that is no different to the way that prisoners are excluded. When you are an LGBTQ plus person in direct provision, there is no recognition of the reasons why you are in an asylum seeker to begin with, because many LGBTQ plus people would have fled horrific situations in their countries. We've had people who survived torture and sexual violence in their countries. Putting people in an environment where they are again subjected to a constant abuse has negative impact on the asylum seekers' mental health. We've had quite a number of LGBTQ plus people who depend on pills in order to cope with life in direct provision, and that is dreadful. The sad part is that people still rely on therapy and sleeping pills and antidepressants long after they've left the direct provision system, and they're still trying to deal with the traumatic experiences that they've gone through. There are very simple things that could be done better. In fact, the government now is showing us that they can get things done very fast if they commit to doing so. If you look at the response to the war in Ukraine, we're not seeing that for asylum seekers in direct provision. We've had people who've been waiting in hotels for months, long before Russia invaded Ukraine. They were waiting for PPS numbers, they were waiting for medical cards, they were waiting for temporary residency permit cards that would facilitate their getting their children to school, for instance. They've shown that they have the necessary resources. It's not an insurmountable task for the Irish state to look after the 8,000 or so people who are in direct provision, many of whom have been in direct provision for many years. The answers are already there. The state knows what the answers are, and the very simple answers is to treat us no differently than you would want to be treated yourself if you went to another country to seek safety. Racism is not something that people experience in faraway places or in closed doors. People will experience racism in your surroundings too. And so I think the very first step that we need to do is to check the environment that we live in. Check your boardroom. Who is in the room? Who isn't in the room? Why are they not in the room? When you walk around Dublin, you will see how diverse the city is. And that needs to be reflected in every part of Irish life if we are to live harmoniously together. I think Irish people can take charge in terms of how to combat racism, because it's certainly not my duty to be going around teaching the Irish government how to treat racialized people with decency. I think Irish people need to take charge in interrogating the spaces that we live in all manner of Irish life, so that we can get to a better place than we are in today.